Good morning. How is everyone? Hope you're well. I'm not wearing makeup today because I didn't want to, but I am wearing butterfly clips because I did want to do that. So that's the vibe. It's 1 p.m. but I haven't done anything today. Like, honestly, we're still recovering. Last night I spent like 4 hours working on this video and then my computer ate it. Not this video, because I haven't made this video yet. I was working on a video that was to wrap up my entire editing process for my debut novel, and my computer was like, no, and ate it this morning. I knew things were going bad last night and I hoped that I would be able to save it in the morning, but I could not. And so then I had to delete all of it. So that's not coming. That should have been out today, as in March 1st, but instead it is going to be out later because I'm going to have to re-edit the whole thing. When will it be out? I don't know, girlies. But today we're going to do something fun and fresh and exciting. Did I introduce myself? No, I think we just jumped into the butterfly clips. I am a little discombobulated. I'm going to be doing my February reading wrap up. I read 8 books in the month of February. Really, I read 7, but we're calling it 8. You'll see why in at some point. A lot of fantasy, a little bit of romance, and I'm going to talk to you about everything I read, and it's going to be a good time, and you're going to have so much fun. Get excited. So let's start at the top. So the first thing I read in the month of February was Babel by RF Kuang. I loved this book so much. This is one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. It is so good. RF Kuang is so incredibly smart. And that's obvious if you go to the about the author. She's like, so my name's RF Kuang. I have 2 master's degrees, one from Oxford and the other from Cambridge, and she's currently getting her PhD at Yale. She is 26, I want to say. She's in her mid-20s somewhere. Poppy Wars, that trilogy, which I haven't read yet, but I'm going to, is a bestseller in fantasy series. She has Babel that just came out. Yellowface is coming out in May, less than a year later, which is a literary fiction piece about publishing. I'm so excited to read it. Anyway, RF Kuang is just amazing, and I'm just in awe of her after I read this book because it's so good. You can definitely tell that she studies language and translation academically. Those are what I think one of her master's degrees are in. But Babel, the premise, I'm sorry, I started to gush about it before I told you what it was about. Babel is a historical fantasy novel. It takes place in 1800s Oxford. We're following a couple characters. We're mainly following Robin, and we're following him over the course of a lot of his life. We meet him, I think, when he's 9 or 10, and his family has just died in China, and this British man comes and is like, come with me. Your whole family's dead? That's okay. You can come with me, and I'm gonna educate you. And so he winds up moving to England when he is 9 or 10, maybe a little older, and being raised by this British professor, and he's being raised to go to Oxford. That is kind of his life path, because in this world the magic system is based on translation. So the magic system is based on these silver bars, and on the silver bars they always have 2 words, and the magic is in the translation between those 2 words from 2 different languages. It is so fascinating, so brilliant. And then it's just the story of him, and he meets these other kids that are going to Oxford in his translation program. There's another student from India, and then there's a student from Haiti, and then there's a student from England. So it's the story really about the 4 of them. We're specifically following Robin, but we get little inserts from the other characters as well, and as they are kind of coming up in this translation institute and also grappling with the immense colonialism of 1800s England and participating in that in a way that is on both sides, because 3 of the 4 of them are foreigners who are in England but are not natural born Englanders, and are from another place, and the racism they're experiencing, and also just grappling with the loss of their language and the fact that they have been kind of taken from their homelands, and then nothing is given back to them in exchange. It is so smart and brilliant. It made me think about particularly language and translation, but also ideas of colonialism in ways that I just hadn't before. There were a lot of moments while I was reading this book where I had to just stop and think, because it is so smart, so interesting, absolutely brilliant. One of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. One of the smartest books I've ever read in my entire life. Obviously I gave 5 stars. Amazing. So good. And then I read Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. This is a thriller, and it is a time travel thriller sort of situation. It's about this woman whose son murders someone pretty early in the book, and then she gets stuck in this time travel situation in which she keeps going back in time, and in order to get out of this time loop, she needs to figure out why her son murdered someone and fix it. and it is really good. It is a thriller setup that I haven't seen before. I find one of my problems with thrillers is they tend to follow kind of similar patterns across books, and so once you've read like one good thriller that is like this, it's hard to read another one and not be like, okay, well, I already know where the twists are going. This book felt really fresh, really new, really, really, really enjoyed it. And then I read a book that was not a book. This book is technically not a real book in that it is Harry Potter fan fiction. I read Manacled last year, as you may recall, and this is my next return to Harry Potter fan fiction. I tried to read some Harry Potter fan fiction right after I finished Manacled because I was like on the train, and none of it really lived up. It's just like a completely different writing style than traditionally published literature, and I was like not feeling it. But I read The Mortifying Ordeal of Falling in Love by Is This Self-Care? Always by a fun author. And it was so good. It is a very slow burn. It's like a pretty chunky, I don't know how long it was exactly. Storygraph tells me it's 648 pages, but I have a suspicion it might be even like a little longer than that if you were to like truly put it in book form. Because it was very long, but it was so good. If you really enjoy like a Mariana Zapata style slow burn romance where like we don't even have a kiss until like the 75% mark, 50% mark, like this is for you. The premise of the book is Hermione, I think Hermione and Draco are like in their early 30s, late 20s at this point. There are like definitely some like changes from the original book. So I don't know exactly what the differences are, but in this world it is like post everything. Draco is an Auror and Hermione is like a scientist and a doctor, and she's doing some research that the ministry is like very concerned is going to put her in danger, and so they assign Draco to be the Auror that's like protecting her. So he's like protecting her. It's kind of like a bodyguard romance if you're into that, a little bit, but like not really. And so it's about, originally they like are really annoyed with each other. We've got like, we're back in that like Hogwarts level kind of like rivalry, but very quickly they like develop a friendship, and then, you know, something more blooms from there. It was so delicious. Like I truly could not ask for a single thing more from this romance. Like it was so good. I thought it was just like delightful. It was like a little cheesy at times, but like I enjoy that. It had like a lot of like drama happening in the background as Hermione's like doing this research project, and so we're kind of like following that drama as well, but it was nothing too like heavy. It like mostly felt like pretty light and fluffy. It was like such a delightful time. I had such a good time. I loved it so much. And then I read Tempt Me by K. Tucker. This book I picked up on a whim because I wanted something like pretty easy breezy, and I saw someone in like a Facebook group that I'm a part of be like, I read this entire series over the course of a week, and I was like, okay, great, sounds great. It was one of those books that like the moment I closed it, I forgot every single thing that happened in it. It's about this girl. She's a college student. She goes to this hotel in Alaska for the summer for like a summer job, and the billionaire that owns the hotel and her like start seeing each other and start sleeping together like pretty quickly. There's like absolutely no substance. It was like head empty, no think. Wasn't really for me. I didn't find it like particularly gripping, and I definitely won't be continuing in the series. Just like, it wasn't my vibe. I say that, but I have a second book in my Kindle downloads right now. But we'll see. Like, you know, I wouldn't rule it out. I've read worse things. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, you didn't love that book. Why are you reading the second one? But like, I make choices. The next thing I read and did count towards my reading goal this year was No Child of Mine. This is my book. I wrote this. I've read this book 1 million times approximately over the last 2 years, but this I think is going to be the final time I have to read through it. I did bypass pages this month, which is where you essentially proofread the entire novel. I read the whole thing out loud to myself, and I'm so glad to be done with that. I love this little nugget, but I'm really ready to be done. It is, I will tell you the premise real quickly. It doesn't come out until September, but the premise is it is about this woman who finds out she's pregnant. She never wanted to be pregnant, but now she is pregnant, and so her and her husband are kind of dealing with that. At the same time, she's kind of confronted with this family curse in which as soon as people get pregnant with their first daughter, their husbands mysteriously end up dying, and also her house is starting to feel like a spooky ooky, and you know, things really spiral from there. We also have a secondary storyline in which we're following 2 young women in like the past, long ago, and their friendship, and that turns into something more, and the letters that go between them, and then somehow obviously those 2 stories connect. And then I read The American Roommate Experiment The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. This is by the same woman who wrote The Spanish Love Deception. It's like a like standalone in the same world. We like see the characters from The Spanish Love Deception in this. It's essentially this girl winds up crashing at her friend's apartment, and at the same time her friend's cousin comes and stays at that apartment, and then her and this cousin fall in love, and she's been in love with this cousin for like a long time. She like has been stalking him on social media and like really likes him, but he doesn't know that. And it was like a little too long. I like enjoyed it. It like had some very swoony moments. I really liked both of the characters, but I felt like it got stretched unnecessarily. And I like a slow burn romance, but there really wasn't any compelling reason why these two couldn't get together. Like, there truly wasn't a compelling reason. And so I was just, like, confused on why it was stretching, because they wind up, like, dating as, like, an experiment, which we'll get to another one in which they're dating for an experiment. Fake dating, I feel like, is very trendy right now. And I'm just like, it's not my favorite trope, especially in this situation where I was like, why? Why aren't you just for real dating? I guess he had to go back to Spain at the end of the book. I don't know. I didn't love it, but it wasn't like a terrible time. I just wish it would have been like a little bit shorter, a little bit tighter. Then I read Legendborn by Tracy. Deonn. This I'm reading because everyone has been talking about Bloodmarked, because I think Bloodmarked just came out, which is the second book in the series. I will be picking that up soon. This is a YA fantasy. It is about this young woman who she's like 16, I believe, and she gets accepted to this early college program at University of North Carolina, and she's starting at this program. Her mother has really recently died, and she's very much in the throes of grief, and on one of her first nights at the university, she experiences this weird, like, magical event, and, like, very quickly gets swept up into this, like, secret society that is called, like, I don't know, it has to do with, like, Knights of the Round Table. It's, like, based around Knights of the Round Table. She gets swept up into the secret society and magic because somehow it might be connected to her mother's death. We're dealing with this, like, magic system. She's kind of, like, learning about it, and her mother might have been connected to the secret society because she also went to this university, but also maybe her death was connected, and so she decides to, like, delve deeper into the secret society to see if she can uncover the mystery of, like, what happened with her mother. I thought it was, like, brilliant. It's very good. I thought the ways they dealt with, like, grief was very good and very interesting. She's really grappling with grief over her mother's loss and trying to, like, figure out what to do with it. And also the conversations around particularly, like, institutionalized racism I thought were incredibly well done and incredibly, like, important. We definitely come to see very, like, individualized racism throughout the novel as well. She's a young Black woman. But I think the deeper conversations around these institutionalized racisms and the ways in which the institutions that have been established for, like, centuries continue to perpetuate these, like, racist ideals and how that plays into the secret society were just, like, really brilliantly done. And then the final thing I read this month was Faking with Benefits by Lilly Gold. This I saw everyone on the TikToks talking about, and so I decided to pick it up, and I was so pleasantly surprised. Like, as you saw by Tempt Me, I'm, like, not above reading, like, a vapid, empty little romance novel on KU. And that's what I was kind of expecting from this one. It is a teamwork romance, as I like to call it. I saw someone else use that term. I wish I could remember on TikTok, but sometimes they're called, like, why choose or reverse harems, but, like, why choose has always felt like a dumb thing to call them. For me, I feel like it's not very descriptive. In reverse harems, there have been, like, some things brought up about, like, whether that is the most, like, culturally sensitive thing to be calling them. So anyway, I'm going to call them a teamwork romance. So essentially it's this one girl, and she winds up dating all three of these guys at the same time. They're, like, all in a relationship together. It is, these three guys have a podcast in which they give relationship advice. And then she lives across the hall, and she's a lingerie designer, and she has never been in, like, really a relationship before. And so the guys decide to take her under their wing, and they're going to teach her how to date. And they do that by essentially dating her. It's like fake dating again. But at this point, like, you guys are very close friends who are being emotionally vulnerable with each other and sleeping together. So I'm, like, confused on, like, you're actually dating at this point. Like, girlies, this is just dating. And so she winds up dating all of them, and I was just, like, shocked at how much, like, depth it, like, what Tempt Me had, like, no substance. This, like, really did. I felt like we had some really interesting arcs. We, like, learn more about this woman and how, like, why she's having these relationship issues, and there is an entire conversation around, like, bullying and, like, slut shaming, and then each of the guys have their own arc and their, like, baggage that they're bringing into the relationships. I felt each of the men was, like, very distinct. Like, they didn't blur together at all. Like, I was just, like, surprised at how, like, well done the book was, and that, like, it sounds rude. I can hear it. It sounds a little rude, but, like, in these type of books, like, I was expecting something a little bit more vapid, and it definitely is spicy. It's, like, one of the spiciest books I've ever read. But it was also, like, really good. I teared up at a couple spots because it was, like, really emotional. I felt like the emotional arcs were really well done. I felt like the characters were really fleshed out, and I'm, like, already reading another Lilly Gold. I have Nanny for the Neighbors already pulled up, and I've read, like, I don't know, 10% of this one already because I really just like loved it. Very much enjoyed, very much would recommend. So that is what I read in the month of February. What will I be reading in March? I don't know. I'm going on a big vacation in March. So exciting. I'm thrilled. So that will either mean I read a lot or like read nothing. But we'll have to find out. I'm hoping to get through some more of these booktuber favorites. It's taking me longer than I had anticipated. What is new? But like, would love to have you here to see it. So if you aren't already, you should subscribe so you can see me next month. And let me tell you about what I'm reading. Tell me what you read this month that was really good in the comments below. And I will talk to you next time. Have a good one.